Welcome everyone to our reflection this week for the Sunday readings. You know, dissidents are extraordinary people. Dissidents are people who protest usually the corruption they find in their state or in their nation or in government. Two dissidents were just sentenced to 11 years in Belarus, okay, because they're protesting the corruption. One dissident from Russia was poisoned with radioactive isotopes. He was dying. He went to Germany, came back to Russia, and he had broken his parole. And so he was thrown in prison for 2 years. These are really impressive people. But you know, dissidents have been around for thousands of years. And they were protesters in the Old Testament who protested the corruption of the king and of the government. And so in the gospel today, we're going to hear about a protester, but we're also going to hear about one of these dissidents in our first reading. The person is the most famous dissident in the Old Testament. It's the suffering servant in the book of the prophet Isaiah. So let's learn a little bit about the reading before we actually hear it. Today's reading is about a mysterious figure in Isaiah who brings about God's will for the world, not through triumph and victory, but through suffering and rejection. He gives his back, his cheeks, his face to those who beat him and spit on him. He is able to do this because he is absolutely confident and convinced that God will be his help. He is so confident, he even taunts those who are abusing him and calls them to confront him. In the gospel, Jesus is that suffering servant who protests what is corrupt and wrong in his day. A reading from the book of the prophet Isaiah. The Lord God opens my ear that I may hear, and I have not rebelled, have not turned back. I gave my back to those who beat me, my cheeks to those who plucked my beard. My face I did not shield from buffets and spitting. The Lord God is my help. Therefore, I am not disgraced. I have set my face like flint, knowing that I shall not be put to shame. He is near who upholds my right. If anyone wishes to oppose me, let us appear together. Who disputes my right? Let that man confront me. See, the Lord God is my help. Who will prove me wrong? The word of the Lord, thanks be to God. So 4 times in the book of the prophet Isaiah, this mysterious figure appears who achieves God's will by enduring suffering and rejection. We're not quite sure who the person is. It could have been Isaiah. Maybe he was referring to himself. It could have been some other prophet that was just suffering. It could have been the nation of Israel who was enduring rejection because it was loyal to God and they were being rejected and persecuted by the nations that surrounded them. It could have been a group of people within Israel, so we're not sure. But the suffering servant that we're told about in the Old Testament is completely fulfilled in Jesus Christ, who suffers for the Lord God and who was rejected, and in many ways his passion fulfilled what we heard about today. I would encourage you, as I always do, to read the reading throughout the day, but to reflect on it and imagine how God has been faithful to you. Maybe it would be good, if you have a connections book, to journal about how you've experienced rejection, or maybe even some type of mild persecution because of your faithfulness to Jesus Christ and to Christianity and maybe to the Catholic Church. I think it would also be good to remind yourself that God does remain faithful to us. And because of His strength, we are able to endure the suffering that comes our way. So God bless. Come back tomorrow. We're going to take a look at our responsorial psalm.